There's a lot of misinformation about the upcoming election. We want to clear that up for our viewers, and I have Clark County Registrar Gloria here to help clear this up. We are in front of the room where the ballots will be counted, and that's one question. How can voters be sure that their ballot was received and will be counted?
All voters will have the opportunity to go on our website. Through Registered Voter Services, they can log in, and there's information there that tells them what the status of their ballot is. Or they can always call 702-455-VOTE and speak with one of our customer service representatives who can answer those questions for them.
There is this push to vote in person in the middle of the pandemic. What would you say to that?
We've made it available. In the primary, we had limited resources and availability. That won't be the case for the general. We have a full early voting schedule, 35 sites scheduled over 14 days. And also on election day, there will be 125 vote centers available. And also important to note, all early voting and all election day vote centers will also serve as mail ballot drop-off locations.
There is a concern about voter fraud. If there are extra ballots by mailboxes, especially apartment complexes, or someone picks up a ballot that's not theirs, that they can fill it out, sign it. What can you say about voter fraud?
Well, first off, that would be an illegal action. It would be against the law for anybody to vote a ballot that is not theirs. However, we have several checks in place. Number one being every ballot that comes in has to be signed. We verify that signature to make sure it matches what's in the database, to verify their identity. And there are several steps that we have as far as security also leading into the tabulation of that ballot.
President Donald Trump has suggested voting twice. What would you say to that?
That would be an illegal action. And it's unfortunate that those types of statements are made. I would discourage any voter from trying to do so. We will definitely know if you've casted two ballots, and we will go after any voter who is illegally voting twice.
Southern Nevada, Las Vegas, it's a transient location, and especially now with the pandemic and job losses, people might be in between homes. How can you be sure that they will receive a ballot?
Voters need to make sure that they're checking to be sure that their information is correct. So now is the time to update your information if you've moved, because mail ballots are not forwardable. Whatever address we send it to, if there's nobody there, it gets returned to us. So voters, please go online if you have a Nevada driver's license or ID and update your information, or before the October 6th deadline, get a form filled out with the updated information and get it to our office so we can get your ballot to you.
The USPS sent a postcard, then the Secretary of State sent another postcard. They both said two different things. Can you clear this up?
We want to make sure that voters are aware in Clark County and really the state of Nevada, you do not need to apply for a mail-in ballot. All active registered voters will be sent, according to statute AB4, a mail ballot. So you do not need to submit a request. So it was a little confusing in the USPS mailer, but we want to make that clear. You will receive your ballot if you're actively registered.
The primary, you mentioned there were limited resources, there were long lines. What is your prediction for election night? And can you talk about the locations and again, the difference?
Well, we'll still have the same safety procedures in place. We're trying to provide a safe environment. There's plenty of disinfecting equipment. Masks are being provided. Face shields are being provided. There's a separator, a plexiglass shield where people sign in to vote. And we're creating what we call a voting cubicle in all of our stations to keep people safe while they vote. We'll encourage people to social distance, and we'll encourage them to wear a mask, and we'll have masks available for those who forget to bring one.
And can you run down some numbers? How many locations, how many voting machines, how many workers and volunteers?
The number of machines varies by site according to how much room we have. But for the early voting process, over 14 days, we'll have 35 teams scheduled to go out and set up on a daily basis. Also, for election day, there will be 125 vote centers available for voters. And again, I emphasize, both early voting and election day sites will also serve as mail ballot drop-off locations for anybody who wants to drop off their ballot instead of putting it in the post office.
Do you need additional election workers, and is it a challenge finding them because of the pandemic and many of them are seniors?
We were short workers in the month of August, but once I put the call out, we got help from the county commission, we got help from several third-party groups that work with us regularly, and we're looking good to supply workers for 125 sites on election day and the early voting program. However, we're still looking for people who have the ability to translate in Spanish and Filipino. So if you're able to work and interested, please contact our office.
Misinformation. Have you ever seen it like this, leading up to an election?
Every election is a challenge. This is my 8th presidential election, so I've seen quite a bit of misinformation that goes out. It's our job to make sure we get the good information out. And doing interviews like this, that's exactly what we try to do. Voters, keep an eye on the mail. You'll be getting a sample ballot filled with accurate information, mail ballot supplement, and your mail ballot in packet. We're also doing a virtual town hall tomorrow night that people can log into and watch. Please watch that. We'll be providing a lot of good information in that town hall.
If I'm a voter in Nevada, what are 3 things I need to know?
Voters in Nevada need to know that you need to update your information. We want to send a mail ballot to the correct address to make sure that you get it. Voters in Nevada also need to know that we have in-person voting ability for early voting and election day. And finally, I would express to all voters, the integrity of the process in elections is something that we take very seriously, not just in Clark County, but at the state level with the Secretary of State's office. We will do everything in our power to make sure that we process ballots correctly and everything is done to uphold the integrity of the process.
Do you think Clark County will have results on election night?
There will be no final results on election night. We will definitely be reporting an unofficial total for our in-person early voting and election day sites minus the provisional votes, but the mail ballots will be counted for several days after election day. So our final unofficial won't be available till well after election day.
For anyone who may not know, what is your role and how is it different from the Secretary of State?
Well, the Secretary of State oversees the entire state. I'm only responsible for Clark County, although the majority of voters in the state of Nevada reside in Clark County. So I'm responsible for the local activities with all elections. The Secretary of State monitors the entire state.
Estimate total voters in Clark County?
1.2 million at this point.
How has the pandemic increased the cost of this election as opposed to previous elections?
Oh, there has been a significant increase in cost. We're providing mail ballots to every active voter. That's not something we normally do. In a big election, comparing it to the 2018, 2016, we would send out maybe 70 or 80,000 mail ballots compared to the 1.2 million that we'll be sending out. The processing of those mail ballots also, we had to incur several costs. And the pandemic has caused us to make sure that we have plenty of safety equipment, disinfectant, masks, all that's necessary to keep our workers and our voters safe as they're casting their ballot.
Any concerns about election security and in particular cybersecurity?
Cybersecurity is an issue that's never going away. It's a constant battle. We've taken extreme steps here in Clark County and compliments to our central IT department that stays on top of that for us. We've done everything we can here locally to make sure that all of our information is safe. It's important to keep in mind our tabulation system is completely isolated. There's no connection to the internet. And every one of our in-person voting systems is also isolated, so there's no access to the internet. So we've done considerable work there and we feel comfortable that we've done everything we can.
So there have been no hacks or anything this year?
Not that I'm aware of.
Do you know how many attempts there might have been?
No.
No. Anything you want to add?
We want voters to cast their ballot. We've done a lot of work to make sure that we're prepared to support in a very challenging time with the pandemic. Voters, keep in mind that if you're concerned at all, make use of the mail-in ballot, keeping in mind also, this is the longest ballot we've ever seen in Clark County. Vote it in the comfort of your home. Do your research. Mark your ballot and send it back. Make sure you've signed the return envelope, not the ballot, the return envelope. Send it to us or drop it off and we'll make sure that that ballot gets processed and counted.
Thank you so much. Less than 50 days from the election. If you have questions, let us know. We will try to get them answered for you. In North Las Vegas, Vanessa Murphy, 8 News Now.